At 50 or older, divorce doesn't just end a relationship. It can unravel your entire future if you're not legally prepared. Too many women walk into the process trusting that things will be fair, that their contributions will be honored, or that they'll be taken care of like they were during the marriage. But divorce court isn't built on trust. It's built on paperwork, proof, and legal leverage. And without the right documents secured before signing anything, the outcome can feel less like closure and more like a lifelong mistake. Many women over 50 assume they'll split things equally, only to find out too late that retirement accounts are locked up, social security options are misunderstood, and health coverage quietly disappears the moment the ink dries. Suddenly, what seemed like a peaceful separation becomes a financial cliff you never saw coming. You're left with questions that should have been answered before you agreed to anything. In this video, we're going to cover 7 essential legal protections that every woman over 50 should secure before agreeing to any divorce terms. These are not just technicalities. They're the difference between peace of mind and regret, between financial survival and silent struggle. Some of these steps are rarely talked about until it's too late, and others might surprise you with how urgent and overlooked they are. So stay with me until the end, because once you know these 7 legal moves, you'll have the confidence to step into any negotiation with clarity, not fear. And more importantly, you'll protect the life you've built, and the future you still deserve. Let's begin. Before you agree to anything, before the first conversation about splitting things, you need to have full visibility. Not assumptions. Not vague promises. Not, he said he'd be fair. You need cold, hard documents. And that starts with getting up-to-date copies of every single financial account. Joint, individual, hidden, and otherwise. Too many women over 50 trust that what's shared will stay shared. But here's what actually happens. Accounts get quietly moved, balances drop, investment portfolios are restructured, and you're left trying to make sense of what disappeared. And once you've signed an agreement, it's often too late to claim what you never had documented. You need copies of all bank accounts, checking, savings, money markets, retirement accounts, IRAs, 401(k)s, pensions and annuities, investment portfolios and brokerage accounts, credit card balances and loan statements, tax returns, at least 3 years back, any hidden income sources like rental properties, business ownership, or deferred compensation. And don't just rely on what he gives you. Cross-reference everything. Look for statements that show withdrawals, deposits, or account transfers. If something feels off or incomplete, it probably is. And that's when it's time to bring in a forensic accountant or attorney who specializes in uncovering hidden assets. This isn't about greed. It's about survival. If you've built a life together, you deserve a fair share of what's there. And you can't fight for what you can't see. So start with the paperwork. Because the woman who walks into divorce with documentation is already 10 steps ahead of the one who walks in with just trust. And as we'll see next, it's not just about knowing what you have. It's about knowing what might be taken away without you even realizing it. Here's a hard truth. Many women walk away from a marriage thinking they've been fair, only to find out years later that they unknowingly gave up hundreds of thousands of dollars, simply because they didn't understand how retirement accounts work during divorce. And once it's signed, it's usually gone for good. If your spouse has a 401(k), pension, or any kind of employer-sponsored retirement plan, you may be legally entitled to a portion of it, even if your name isn't on the account. But here's the catch. That right doesn't automatically activate. It has to be negotiated and legally secured through a very specific document called a QDRO, a Qualified Domestic Relations Order. Without it, even if the divorce decree says you get a share, the retirement plan administrator has no obligation to follow through. And don't let him or anyone tell you, it'll work out later. Later is too late. What makes this even more dangerous for women over 50 is time. You're not just fighting for your future. You're racing against it. Starting over financially at 30 is one thing. At 55 or 60, your options narrow fast. You might not have time to rebuild retirement savings, re-enter the workforce, or wait for compound interest to do its magic again. If he spent decades building that account while you ran the household, raised children, or supported his career, then part of that money is yours. Period. But you need the right legal language and court orders to claim it. So before you agree to any terms, ask yourself, have I seen every retirement account? Do I know exactly what I'm entitled to? Has the QDRO been filed, approved, and followed through? If not, don't sign. Because no matter how calm or cooperative things feel now, regret hits hardest when you realize what you walked away from and can't get back. And in the next section, we'll talk about one of the most overlooked dangers that can quietly strip you of protection the moment the divorce is final. And most women never see it coming. For many women over 50, health insurance isn't just important, it's everything. And yet, it's one of the most overlooked and misunderstood pieces of the divorce process. Too often, women assume they'll stay on their husband's health plan until they figure something out. But here's the reality. The moment your divorce is finalized, you could lose access to his insurance entirely. And without a backup, that loss can be devastating. It doesn't matter how long you've been married. Once the legal bond is broken, most employer plans are no longer obligated to cover an ex-spouse. That means if you're not employed, not eligible for Medicare, and don't have your own coverage lined up, you could be staring down outrageous monthly premiums or a complete lack of care. And at this stage of life, going without coverage isn't just risky, it's dangerous. Let's say you're 55. You're too young for Medicare, you're not working full-time, and the divorce hits next month. Do you know what your options are? Have you looked into COBRA, individual marketplace plans, or state health exchanges? Do you know how much those premiums will be, and how long you'll have coverage? Because if you don't plan now, you may be forced into making desperate financial decisions just to afford basic medical care. Some women agree to unfavorable settlements just to keep coverage for a few more months. Others assume they'll find a job quickly, only to realize age discrimination is real and the job market isn't kind to someone re-entering it after decades. So here's the takeaway. Before you agree to anything, sit down and map out your health insurance timeline. What happens immediately after the divorce? How long will any temporary coverage last? Can you afford it on your own? If not, can you negotiate spousal support to help cover it, or delay the final divorce until you're Medicare eligible? Because it's not just about paperwork. It's about protecting your body, your future, and your ability to stay independent as you age. And as we move into the next section, we'll uncover something just as vital. The house. A source of security for many women, but also one of the biggest financial traps. For a lot of women over 50, the house feels like the last piece of solid ground. It's familiar. It's safe. It's the place where you raised your kids, built your life, and found comfort during the hardest moments. So when divorce enters the picture, keeping the house often feels like winning the battle. But here's the hidden danger. What feels like stability can quietly turn into a financial anchor that drags you down. Many women fight to keep the home, thinking it's the smartest choice. They picture themselves staying put, hosting holidays, maintaining a sense of normalcy. But what they don't always calculate is the long-term cost. Can you afford the mortgage on your own? What about property taxes, repairs, insurance, utilities, and unexpected emergencies? That roof leak, that furnace replacement. Are those things you can manage solo month after month, year after year? Here's what happens far too often. Women keep the house, give up other assets to make the numbers feel fair, and then discover too late that they don't have enough liquid savings to actually survive. The house looks good on paper but leaves them cash poor, isolated, and stressed. And if the market dips or property taxes spike, that win can quickly become a burden. Worse still, if the house was originally in your husband's name or tied to joint debt, things can get even messier. Refinancing after divorce isn't always simple, especially if your income is limited or your credit isn't strong. And if you fall behind on payments, you don't just risk the house. You risk your credit, your safety, and your peace of mind. So before you agree to keep the home, ask yourself the questions no one else will. Do I truly want to stay, or am I clinging to the past? Can I afford this without draining my retirement? Would it be wiser to sell, split the proceeds, and start fresh somewhere more manageable? Because what looks like emotional security today could quietly become a financial trap tomorrow. And in the next section, we'll talk about something even more hidden. How taxes after divorce can take a shocking bite out of your settlement if you're not prepared. Divorce is already overwhelming enough. But what many women over 50 don't realize, until it's far too late, is how taxes can quietly strip away the value of what they thought they secured. You might walk away thinking you got a fair deal, only to find out that the assets you received are taxed differently. And suddenly, what felt equal on paper turns out painfully lopsided in real life. Let's break it down. Not all assets are created equal when it comes to taxes. Say you take the house, and your ex keeps the retirement account. Both are worth $400,000. Seems fair, right? But if you decide to sell that house later, you may owe capital gains taxes. Meanwhile, if your ex delays touching the retirement account until retirement age, he might face lower tax rates, or even special tax advantages. What looked equal isn't equal at all. Then there's the retirement money itself. If you get part of his 401k or pension through a QDRO, Qualified Domestic Relations Order, you'll owe income tax on any withdrawals. Possibly even early withdrawal penalties if you're under 59 and a half and don't handle it properly. One wrong move, and tens of thousands of dollars can disappear overnight. Even spousal support comes with tax consequences. It used to be tax deductible for the payer and taxable for the receiver. But under current laws, that's changed. If you're getting alimony now, you don't owe taxes on it. But your ex can't deduct it either. That may affect how much they're willing to pay, or how negotiations unfold. And here's the part that stings the most. Many lawyers and mediators gloss over these details, especially if you don't ask. But the IRS won't gloss over a thing. So if you don't understand what's taxable, what's not, and how timing affects everything, you could end up with a settlement that looks rich on paper, but leaves you struggling in reality. Before you sign anything, talk to a divorce-savvy financial planner or tax professional. Ask about tax basis, penalties, capital gains, and whether that generous offer will really hold up once Uncle Sam takes his cut. Because in divorce, ignorance isn't bliss, it's expensive. And as we move forward, we'll talk about one more often overlooked piece that could determine whether you can stay financially stable at all. How to protect your future income from unexpected changes. Here's what catches many women over 50 off guard. They assume that once divorce terms are signed, everything is locked in. That their income from spousal support, pensions, or retirement assets will flow exactly as expected. But in reality, future income is fragile. And if you don't legally secure it up front, it can vanish faster than you ever imagined. Let's talk about spousal support first. If you're depending on monthly alimony to cover your bills, what happens if your ex suddenly stops paying? Or worse, passes away unexpectedly? Many women assume those payments are guaranteed, but unless there's a legally binding agreement and protections in place, you could be left with nothing. Life insurance on your ex, with you as the beneficiary, is one of the smartest safeguards, and yet, hardly anyone talks about it. Without it, spousal support ends the moment he does. Then there's the issue of pension plans and Social Security. If your ex was the primary earner, you may be entitled to a portion of their pension or retirement benefits, but only if it's spelled out in your divorce decree. Some pensions require specific language or deadlines to designate survivor benefits. Miss it, and the benefit dies with your ex. And don't forget about Social Security. If you were married at least 10 years, you may be eligible for spousal benefits based on your ex's record, even if they remarry. But many women never learn this until long after the divorce, losing out on money they could have used to stay afloat in retirement. Also, make sure your share of any retirement accounts is transferred properly, typically via QDRO for 401k, S or similar plans. Without that document, the account owner keeps full control, and you risk delays, tax penalties, or even being cut out entirely. This is where the paperwork matters. Vague promises or verbal agreements mean nothing if they're not backed by ironclad legal terms. You need specifics. How much, for how long, what happens if he stops paying, and what backup plans are in place. Because your financial future after 50 depends on income that's stable, protected, and enforceable. Otherwise, one unexpected event can unravel everything you thought was secure. And in the next section, we'll dig into something even more personal. How failing to update your legal documents after divorce can leave your ex with control over your legacy, your health decisions, and your future. After the divorce papers are signed, most women think the hard part is over. But what often gets overlooked is that the legal cleanup isn't done. Not even close. And if you don't update the right documents, wills, power of attorney, healthcare proxies, you could unintentionally leave your ex-husband with decision-making power over your life, your body, and your legacy. It sounds dramatic, but it happens more often than you'd think. Imagine being rushed to the hospital after an accident, unconscious, unable to speak for yourself, and the person legally authorized to make medical decisions is your ex. Why? Because you never updated your healthcare directive. You assumed the divorce took care of everything. It didn't. Or picture this. You pass away unexpectedly, and your ex is still listed as the primary beneficiary on your life insurance, retirement accounts, or even your will. That money? It goes to him. Not your children, not your siblings, not the charity you care about. Him. And once it's paid out, there's almost no legal way to undo it. What's even more painful is that this doesn't just affect money, it affects dignity. If you want someone you trust to make choices about your healthcare, your funeral, your estate, that needs to be written down, signed, and filed. And it needs to happen as soon as the divorce is finalized, not years later when it's too late to fix. This isn't about revenge. It's about control. About ensuring that your next chapter is truly yours, and not quietly dictated by someone you left behind. Because the most shocking part of divorce after 50 isn't the financial split. It's how many loose ends are left hanging, just waiting to pull your life in the wrong direction if you don't take action. So once the ink dries on the divorce decree, don't walk away thinking you're done. Sit down, review every legal document tied to your name, and ask yourself, if something happened to me tomorrow, who would be in charge? Who gets what? Who decides how I'm treated? If the answer still includes your ex, it's time to fix it. Because protecting your future doesn't end with divorce. It begins with reclaiming every piece of your power, one document at a time. And in the final section, we'll bring it all together. With a closing message that may shift how you view every decision you make from this point forward. Looking back, most women over 50 who go through divorce don't regret wanting a new beginning. What they regret, deeply, is assuming the paperwork would protect them, that fairness would be automatic, that no one would take advantage of someone who had already lost so much. But divorce isn't just emotional. It's legal, financial, and irreversible in ways that can take years to fully reveal themselves. Maybe you've spent decades raising children, supporting a partner's career, or holding a family together. And now, as that life shifts, you're expected to rebuild from scratch, with less time, fewer resources, and a legal system that rarely stops to ask what's actually fair. That's why securing the right legal protections isn't about being difficult. It's about being prepared. These 7 legal steps, understanding marital assets, claiming retirement rights, reviewing insurance, managing debt exposure, securing spousal support, protecting housing, and updating legal documents, aren't just boxes to check. They are the guardrails that keep your future from being quietly dismantled while you're still grieving what you've already lost. So ask yourself, if you sign today, will you wake up a year from now wondering what you didn't know? Or will you look back knowing you fought for yourself in every way possible? Because the truth is, no one else will do it for you. Not your lawyer. Not your ex. Not the court. You have one chance to make these decisions before they become permanent. If this video helped you see something more clearly, or sparked a question you hadn't asked yet, leave a comment below. Share what stood out to you. Because your experience might be exactly what another woman needs to hear before she signs something she can't take back. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. We share new videos each week to inform, protect, and empower people like you. Especially in life's most vulnerable moments. Thank you for watching. And remember, it's not just about surviving the divorce. It's about building the life that comes after, with your eyes wide open, your power intact, and your future finally in your hands.